Let me show you something, alright? Look at this. You know, what I see is people are in the flow, a state of a fully present consciousness that allows them to do the things they love instead of thinking that it's just work, a hassle, or a short time barricade for their dreams. And I guess that a lot of people find excuses anyways, saying that, well, if I had a studio like that, and if I had a guitar like that, or equipment like that, of course I would have made music like that, you know? People will always find excuses to find things to not actually get started doing the things they actually want to do. But that's the thing, you know? You gotta understand that all great things takes time, and what you gotta do is that you gotta love the process and see the beauty behind every action. You know, don't fall for procrastinations, hesitance, or avoidance, you know. Don't let that win over you and accept the fact that it's gonna take time, but you gotta be willing to have fun. Imagine this. Imagine a painter, right? He works for hours on end every single day and he barely goes to the restroom. His wife goes up to him and a couple times a day and delivers coffee and food and asks him when are you gonna rest. Isn't it time to take a pause? No. The next day, his wife comes up to him and she asks him, "Aren't you tired from working so much? I've barely seen you move since yesterday." And the painter answers, "Work? I'm not working." And he then continues on to paint. You see, the things he sees as fun. He loves the process, you know. That's the beauty, you see. The painter doesn't see it as work. He sees it as something as fun. He sees the work he does as fun, right? All the sweat, tears, and pain he's putting into his work is gonna turn out something beautiful that he created on his own with his bare hands. And as children of God, we gotta understand that we gotta be creative, right? We gotta create our own path in life. And to do so, we can't listen to others, right? We can't see the things we do as a hassle, right? We can't see it as, okay, I'm almost done. Okay, I just gotta do this. When I'm done, I'm one step closer to achieving my dreams. So, you know, you can't see it as a hassle. You gotta see it as something you look forward to, something you have fun while doing. You know, and when you see it as something fun, that's when the hours are gonna pass. That's when you're gonna enter that flow state, and that's when you're not gonna think, "Oh, when am I done?" You know, you're not gonna think about that. You're just gonna be fully locked in. You're gonna be fully present in the moment. You know what I mean? So that's what you gotta do. You know, this is quick. This is that's what you gotta do. You know, there's this great quote that I love to use, and it's, "Love what you make and make what you love." And as in my last video I talked about, to truly live life is to not live by others. And it's something that we've grown up with, right? Since kids and since a young age, we've always been told, you know, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you gotta do this, you gotta do it this way, and you gotta do this, and you gotta go to college, you know what I mean? We get so brainwashed unconsciously that we forget about our dreams. We get lost in life, and we truly forget how to live. You know, when we're being told constantly what's wrong and what's right, you forget what you truly live for. Alright, so this next topic we're gonna talk about is about going deeper in ourselves, okay? And it's about our creative spirit, okay? So our creative spirit is inside of us. It's like a GPS, you know, directing our attention to the things that will make us successful. And being successful is gonna be different, you know, in the terms of other people. You know, some people might consider being successful as making art, making music, or some might see it as starting a business, you know, living in Dubai and getting a car. Some might see it as being a school teacher. But you gotta understand that our creative spirit wants the best for us, you know? And when you're having fun is when our creative spirit is at work. And that's what you gotta understand. Now, like I said, when we're having fun, our creative spirit is at work. But don't be deceived by this, you know. Let's say, for example, partying versus work fun. When you party, of course, most people are gonna have fun. You know, drinking, laughing with the friends, talking about old stories, reminiscing about the past. But you gotta compare it side by side. Partying and working on like a side business. Working on a side hustle that's gonna turn your life into the better place, into the next level, you know? When you compare those, which one of those do you think our creative spirit truly desires, you know, truly want for us? What's best for us? And it's pretty simple, you know? Going partying versus actually doing stuff that's gonna turn our life better, gonna turn ourselves into the better version, right? And I know I've had a lot of arguments about this where people said, you know, we're young, live life, live our life, you know, and that's where most people go wrong. Of course, you gotta always live life, but going out and partying and drinking every weekend and going out and doing things and getting wasted, that, you know, that's not gonna turn you from being a zesty bitch into, you know, your dream self. That's not gonna turn you from being skinny to muscular. It's not gonna turn you from having low energy and low fatigue to turning into a beast, you know? You gotta be honest with yourself, and most people aren't honest. So, to truly follow your creative spirit is also to be willing to accept, to be willing to change, to be willing to open up to new ideas and new beliefs. And we're gonna talk about beliefs in the future, but to truly change as a person, right? And to actually do the things you actually love is to be willing to change. And as I said before, go outside your comfort zone. Because how are you gonna know that something you haven't even tried is not gonna be the next best thing in your life, right? You know, I used to, like I said, smoke weed, do drugs, masturbate. And if you asked me like, 6 months ago, if I wanted to change, I would have probably told your ass to get the fuck out, you know? I was so comfortable and I was so not willing to change my beliefs that I was delusional in a way that was bad for me, you know? I was tired consistently. I was, you know, I had so much brain fog, and I was so used to just laying in my bed scrolling and busting a fat one that I had no vision of future, you know? I couldn't see myself successful. I couldn't see myself actually achieving my dreams that I truly wanted as a kid, you know? And that's what dangerous. Living out your teenage years, partying, drinking, doing drugs, and having sex, you know, that is what's gonna ultimately gonna control and, you know, change your beliefs for the worst. It's gonna put you in a state of confusion. You're gonna lose yourself. So, by accepting that you have to change your beliefs, and by truly trying out new things that your creative spirit attracts us to, you know, if our attention goes both ways, if our attention goes to partying and drinking, but the other attention goes to, you know, starting out a new side business, side hustle, you know, you gotta of course think deeper and, okay, what's actually the best for me? Going out and partying, getting my ass wasted, getting posted on fucking Instagram butt naked in a fucking hotel room, or going and actually putting in the work, you know? And that's why we can't forget to have fun, so the work doesn't seem like a hassle, you know? So start romanticizing your life, you know? See it as a project, you know? See it as a movie, and the hours you're putting in is just, it's literally just the intro to a new life, and have fun while doing it, you know? Because if you don't have fun while working and doing the things that ultimately gonna change your life for the better, if you don't have fun, then you're never gonna have the motivation, or you're never gonna have the discipline to actually stay in tune, you know. Or even if you do get discipline, it's gonna be so hard to actually stay in line, you know. When all of your friends are outside drinking and you don't have fun while working, or you know, locking in, of course it's gonna be hard to actually stay consistent, you know. So you gotta have fun while doing it. So, you know, make art from your heart. Alright? Don't numb away your true desires, alright? Don't try to see partying as something fun, because for most people it's just an avoidance issue, you know. They go out and drink because they want to avoid the problems they have in life, you know. So try out new things, you know. Try out the new things you're attracted to, you know. To follow your creative spirit is to not hesitate. Believe in yourself, believe in your creative spirit, right? Believe in the process and believe in what it guides you. Because how are you gonna say that you don't want to like try out new things if you haven't even tried living life, you know? If you haven't even tried doing new things, you can't be so denieful of, you know, trying out new things. So get your ass outside and just follow your heart, man. Like what was you as a kid gonna think? Imagine just, you know, we're gonna talk about it more in the future as well, not to dwell it too much in the past, but imagine this, right? Go back like a couple years. Go back a couple years. See yourself as 12 years old again, man. And you know, try to remember what dreams you had. And now imagine you as a kid seeing yourself right now. Would your kid self be happy? Like, would he actually think like, wow, I'm dope as hell? Or would he think like, what the fuck, what a piece of shit am I? What am I doing? I'm busting a fat one to a phone screen, to a pair of anime titties? Or wow, holy shit, look at me, I'm actually grinding. You know, even if you don't have the dream car yet, you're still grinding for it. You know, while everyone else is outside partying, you're still grinding to do the things that you truly desire, you know? So, have fun. Romanticize your life. Don't see everything as a hassle. Alright? So now the last thing I want to talk about is perspective. Perspective, bitch. Alright, so the last thing I want to talk about is perspective, right? And the video is getting kind of long, so I'm gonna shorten it down a bit, because I want to also talk about perspective in another video. It's a lot I want to talk about. You're gonna hear me yap a lot on my channel, right? But perspective, right? You gotta change your perspective, you know. What you see as fun, someone else might see as boring. What someone else might see as boring, you might see as fun, right? But even if you might not enjoy the process right now, you know, try to see the beauty in everything else. Because if we're constantly thinking about the negative things, how are we supposed to think about the positive ones? You know, sure, your life might not be what you want it to be right now. Sure, your life might be mostly shit, but there's also a lot of beauty in it, you know? And to be great, you have to be grateful. So be grateful. You know what I do? Every time I'm gonna go to sleep, I pray to God, and I thank God, and I thank also myself for the opportunities, you know, and I thank God for a roof over my head, and I thank God for everything I did. You know, I try to figure out, okay, what have I done today that have made me 1% better? You know, what good have come along the way today? You know, what good have happened in my life today? And I thank God for that. And I also thank myself for, okay, thank you for actually having the energy, or thank you for actually having the discipline to do this. You know, thank you myself for actually, you know, trying to achieve bigger dreams in life, you know. So always, every single day, try to think about the good things and not only the negative things, right? So it's all about perspective. And the more you do so, every day, all right, every day, the more you try to think about the good things, the more you're gonna appreciate life. That's what I did. You know, in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought the process was boring, and you know, going to the gym, actually you know, writing down every trade I took, writing down every setup that I took, you know, writing down. I have a lot of papers on my wall. I thought that writing and reading books was so boring, but I gave it a chance, right? I try to see the positive things. I try to see the positive light in things. So when I did so, every day became better. Every day became, you know, much more less stressful. And I became more happier and I became more energized because I actually started to enjoy the things I did because I was open to seeing the positives and everything and not only the negative things, you know. So perspective. Try to have a good perspective. Even if it seems like you're in a bad state in life right now, try to see the good things, you know? Because if you're constantly thinking about the past and the future and everything bad around you, you're blinded by these beautiful lights around you. You're blinded. You're blind. So that's the video for today. I don't want to drag it out anymore. I know y'all attention span is pretty shit. So thank you for watching, and you know, live life, have fun, romanticize life. You know, life is a movie if you act like it. If you make life a movie, it's gonna be a movie. You know, I truly, you know, hate is a strong word, but I don't like it when people say, "Oh, stop living life as a movie. Life is not a movie," you know, blah 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 blah. Bro, life is a movie if you think it is, you know. If you see it as a movie and if you make it as a movie, it's gonna be a movie, right? Just because you work and scrub toilets and shit and hate your life doesn't mean that I can't live my life, you know. That doesn't mean I don't love my life. I love my life. Cool. Shut the fuck up. Bye.